What's up, running fans, throwing fans, jumping fans, all around athletics fans? Welcome to Talking in Ovals. I'm Alex Cuesta. How's everybody doing out there? Always here with my amazing co-host, the man everyone comes to hear, Dave Hyatt. What's up, Coach? How are you?
Not much. Just watching this Rutgers game, hoping that they can beat the number one team in the country again this year. But
yeah, it's going to be tough.
Shall say.
Yeah, as we're watching this, we're recording at, we're starting here at 8:45-ish. They are holding on to a 2-point lead, so we shall see if the Scarlet Knights can continue to do their thing. So before we get into all the fun stuff, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5-star, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth, which I think has been like our biggest ally right now, is we're getting every single coach in New Jersey right now to come on. Every high school coach, it seems like, and I'm cool with it. Start off with the best state in the union and then spread out. So that's how we got to do it here. But again, we're recording on Monday, January 2nd, 2023. Before we jump in with our show today, I just want to promote last week's show. For those that haven't listened, we had on Coach Chuck Williams. He's the head women's XC track coach at Marist College. We talked a lot of fun stuff, talked about, his running journey. We talked about collegiate race walking, which I don't think many people are really in tune with, but I know we each got an education on race walking and everything like that. And then we just had a great conversation. So go back and listen to that. Hyatt, we have PRs.
Woo! First time we could say thank you to those coaches who finally sent us some PRs. It's about time.
Yes, we have some official high school PRs. We've had a few college ones from my alma mater, Marist College, but thank God for our cool freaking guests, because your friends, we've had your guests come on, they've come through. Our first one here comes from South Brunswick High School. Carol Pabini, Jason Kaiser, Jacob Brokaw, Demarion Potts. They ran a 31.89 shuttle hurdle over at the Leon Bailey Relays at the Jersey City Armory. This was on the 16th of December. At the time, that was number one ranked in New Jersey. Now, may have been unseeded, but at the time, they were the best. So congrats to you, gentlemen, and awesome job there. Dave, we have more.
I do. I have some ladies over down in Lacey Township. Thank you, Coach Geiger. I have Sophia Reed jumping 16 feet, 4.75 inches to get the new school record for the Lacey Lions in the long jump. Avery Johnson, 65.62 in the 400, and Natalie McGovern, 67.89 in the 4. Great job, girls.
Yep, that was over at the Ocean Breeze Holiday Festival. Congrats to all the PRs that we just sent out, and we will be hounding our next guest, definitely, to start sending them in for us as well. We're pumped to have our next guest on. He is someone that ran at his alma mater, ran at the school that he's currently coaching at right now, from 93 to 97, walked on the Rutgers, ran over there for 5 years, was named the team captain, which, if you've ever competed in collegiate athletics, to go from walk on a team captain, you have to do something right. And then he went to go teach and started coaching in 2004 over at the school that he ran at and went to, Westfield High School. He's been coaching there since 2004 and a volunteer assistant, took over for head coaching in 2004, if I'm correct, or in 2011. I don't know. I might have mixed that up, but he is Coach Chris Tafelski. What's going on, Coach?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. There was a lot to go through there, but I tried. So how's everything going with you? It's, you are full swing out of XC, full swing now into indoor. What has that been like? Maybe I didn't put this on, but give us a little quick insight. What's the transition like from XC to indoor real quick?
Yeah. We went to the Nike regional meet. That's the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And then, officially the winter track season starts the Monday before Thanksgiving. We've never started that day. We always come back the Monday after Thanksgiving, start clean after the holiday. But those kids who go all the way to the regional meet, we took 7 guys in the varsity race and another 14 in the open race. Wow. So we gave those kids another almost 2 weeks to themselves after that. And so they came on a little bit later. We just had our first meet. We went to the NJCTC relays on Friday night at Ocean Breeze. And we took sprinters, jumpers, and our distance guys who didn't go to the regional meet. So, we have a big cross country squad. So, we take our top 20 guys to the regional meet, bring them along a little bit more slowly, and we can still fill out some pretty good stuff at a meet like that. So those guys who went to the regional meet, some of them are going to open up this Wednesday. We have our county relays.
Okay.
And some guys, the guys who ran in like the varsity meet at the regionals, they're gonna open up at Ocean Breeze on Saturday.
So off the top of your head, I'm going to put you on the spot. Any PRs you could think of that you could throw out there for any of your athletes? Yeah, throw them out. Let's give them a shout out. One of the goals of this show is to, I don't care if you're the fastest runner on your team, the slowest runner on your team, you get a PR. Talking to Nobles wants to let people know about it. Yeah,
so I'll give a shout out to a couple of my sophomores. Because we had a sophomore school record in the 200. My boy Luke Gurney ran 23:58. And sophomore school record in the long jump, Charlie Vanasek, 17:10 and 3/4. And Jack Hill, a distance runner for us, ran 2:17.7 to lead off a 4x8. I think his best from last spring was probably about that, but it's an indoor best by about 6 seconds.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I always tell my guys, in the winter, you gotta be patient with the PRs. Everybody wants to crush their outdoor PRs, right out of the gate in the winter. And, my whole thing with them is, if you can beat your outdoor PR in the indoor season at some point, then you're off to the races in the spring.
Yeah.
They don't like to hear that. I try to temper the expectations a little bit.
It's definitely easier now than when we were in school because you have such better places to actually run. You're not running at Princeton without spikes or Red Bank or Fairleigh Dickinson. There's actually places that have bank tracks, but still, it's twice the amount of laps. So anytime that you can run that, it's
good. I've heard you talk about Red Bank. I remember you talking about it when we were in college. I heard you talk about it on a couple of your earlier shows.
I hate that place.
I think, and I've never been to Red Bank, and we can fight about this forever. Union County might have you beat with the Dunn Center. Because back in the day in Union County, we ran on the gym floor in Elizabeth 3 laps to a 400 on the gym floor. And the rumor has it that Tim Styler broke 10 minutes in there for 32, which might be the greatest athletic event.
Was it square? The question is, was it square? Because Red Bank was basically a square.
Yes, it was. Okay. It was rounded corners, but basically a rectangle.
That might have a beat then. That might have a beat. Red Bank was at least, what was Red Bank, like 310 or something like that? It was
160 meters, so it was 10 laps for the mile.
160, yeah. 100, yeah. So yeah, you might have a beat there. So
I've heard bad things about the Dunn Center too.
Dude, I remember arguing about this with you on runs 25 years ago.
The point is that kids don't realize how lucky they have it now with where they're able to compete. Bank tracks, like I never saw a bank track in the high school. Anyway.
Yeah, so I hope the athletes that are listening, I hope they're the athletes you mentioned are listening so they can get a nice shout out. But let's jump in. Let's start talking about you, Coach. Because one of the things that we do like to do, and I'm going to use it again, I think I'm going to overuse this, but the spark, right? Where was your spark as a youngin', as a child, as a kid, that you found yourself sitting there running and going, I could do this for a real long time. I think this is my sport. Where did you kind of get that? Talk to me about like where the running journey started with you and all that.
So it started with this just kind of whim. Like I remember 8th grade, we had like study hall, and Coach Martin, who taught in the middle school that I went to, walked in, and I had him in class that year, and he kind of threw it out there as a suggestion to me, and I never really took it seriously at all. And then a couple of my friends were like, "Hey, I think I might do this." And I'm like, "I don't know what this is." Like, but then he walked into our study hall and he's like, "Hey, I'm just looking for people who are interested in cross country. What do you guys think?" And a couple guys around me are like, "Yeah, what do you think?" And they got up, and I was like, all right, well, if you guys are doing it, yeah, I'm into. And so it was just, if those two guys weren't in the room with me, like, I don't know if any of it would ever happen, like, which is kind of this interest, just right place, right time kind of thing. But I was hooked pretty much immediately, because I think the way that he would talk to us about, like, this is how it works, and it's going to be really difficult at the beginning until you can get to the point where you can enjoy it and just be willing to suffer through that rough early stretch. And then, once that started to work, kids are amazed how much better they can get in like 4 weeks of consistent running.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Absolutely. How much. And so, as soon as I saw that it was working, I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And, the guys that were on the team with me, I believe there were 8 of us on like our freshman team in fall of 93 or whatever. And, the team was like maybe 35 guys. And it was cool. It was fun. Coach made it fun. It was hard. It was like the right mix. And like the vibe of the team is what kept me coming back.
That's, I think a lot of runners will attest to that, Dave and myself, like the camaraderie you get when you go through a grueling XC summer or just super hard workouts with, your other athletes that are with you, your other XC runners and distance runners and things like that. You kind of get a bond. And, one thing I got out of that, Coach, is always be a leader until being a follower is like a positive thing. Because it's like, as coaches and stuff, we always like preach, like, be a leader, do this. But you followed and it ended up being a really good thing. So
yeah, I mean, Martin had this phrase that I've stolen and I still bust it out from time to time: positive peer pressure. That you got, he always talked about it in the context of a workout. Like, don't get dropped. Positive peer pressure. Stick. And but you can apply that in so many other ways.
Yeah, especially to high school kids, 100%. Nope. So
now, I mean,
go ahead, Dave.
I remember racing against Chris's school, Westfield, in high school, because my team, we had a pretty good DMR, but so it was always fun because he had a great anchor leg, and I had a great anchor leg in Chris Greer, so it was always fun to watch Matt and Chris go at it. And I think one of my favorite things watching at that time was watching his school win the DMR at the Penn Relays. I thought that was the coolest thing because, it had always been like Irish teams or, but to watch someone from New Jersey that I've competed against win Penn Relays was pretty freaking awesome. So that's just one memory that I have of Chris's school from when I was in high school. It was so cool.
That was a pretty amazing moment. And I think too, you brought up, having a guy like Matt Muccio on the team. I think that was essential for all of us at the time. Was, we went into every competition, every season, believing that we could do something really special. Because when you've got a kid like that, I mean, this is a kid who, he did that. He anchored that Penn Relays DMR when we were in 10th grade. And here I am. I'm some kid who's like tried for the 8th time to break 5 minutes for a mile in that season. And here's this kid who like popped a 152 like 2 weeks before. And then, this 10th grader. And he was still, of all the runners I've ever known, the most explosive runner in terms of like, so this is a kid who, was third at the MOC in crossing, could run a 47 on track, 400. And
wow.
I mean, you talk about range and just snappy and elastic and explosive. And he made believers out of all of us. Because when you got a kid like that on the team who can just slam the door on anybody, I mean, I think about that a lot as a coach. And one of the things that I always kind of one of the things I always thought about that I tried to like foster in my own teams is how can we have that level of belief every year? You're not always going to have a kid like that. You might never have a kid like that. on your team, but how can you create an environment where the kids believe that they can do something really special every season? And that it's a challenge, and it depends on who you've got, and it depends on who your competition happens to be that year. Because some years your competition's really up, so you could be really up too, and the chips may not fall in your favor anyway. But that's something that I remember even when I first started coaching. How can we create that level of belief every year?
So walk down memory lane a little bit. Go back to you start in high school, you start as a freshman, and then kind of, take us through what are some memories that you have from, running freshman, sophomore, junior year, the decision to even walk on at Rutgers, because that's tough. That's, at the time they're a Big East school. They're still a Division I good school. Lots of really good runners on that team. So talk a little bit about high school. Obviously you had, great experience with having a extremely talented individual on the team, which that's sometimes the fun of running track and being on a team, right? Is seeing some amazing stuff, even when it's not your team. I remember I went to Marist College, and the first time I went and saw somebody break 4 minutes in person, it was like, whoa, this is a different level now. Someone just ran a 3:59 indoor. This is dumb. This doesn't make sense that I saw someone do that in person. So kind of talk about some of your fond memories in high school, your decision to walk on, and what kind of it was like battling at Rutgers and becoming a captain.
Well, I think for me, it was, I was definitely like a role player kind of a guy. We won Group 4 cross country my junior year, my senior year, and I think I was the sixth man when I was a junior, and I was in our top 5 when I was a senior. And the cool thing about that for me was, we talked about Matt and all that, but when we were seniors in that Group 4 race, if you took Matt out of the scoring, we still win. But
that's crazy.
But we got to that level because he was on the team. And I've seen this, because we had that belief that we could do something special, we brought a little something more to all of our practices. We brought a little something more to all of our races. And, so much of this, especially at the high school level, is the psychological component of believing in what you've done and believing in your teammates. And he gave us that, and to the point where we got to the point where we could have done it without him, but we would never have done it without him. Then I was always trying to break into those hot relays, run a Penn. I never ran a Penn when I was in high school. I never ran a Penn when I was in college. I've only set foot on the track at Penn as a coach. And even then, having graduated, and a lot of my teammates were going to run at their respective schools. And when I was a senior, our top 5 in cross, we were all seniors, and we were all, except for me, everybody was running it at their school. And, I did the walk-on thing. I made 100 phone calls, never really got a call back. And then a couple of weeks before I arrived on campus, I called again, and Steve Feeble picked up the phone. He's the head coach of Jackson, right? And he was the assistant for Coach Mulqueen. And, we talked on the phone for, 5 minutes or whatever. And he's like, yeah, well, here's going to be our first workout. You're welcome to come by, and, we'll give a test drive or whatever. And I actually got hurt after that. And they tested me. They tried me out, so to speak. And I hadn't really done that much running because I hurt my foot, and probably because I was so desperate to get fit enough to make it.
Yeah.
And so I think we had to run 22 minutes for 4 miles on the track, and there were 5 of us trying out, and I fell way off the pace after 2.5 miles, and I just stepped off the track, and I was in pretty bad shape. And Coach Mulqueen took me aside, and he was like, look, you come from a school with accomplishments. You clearly are serious about this. Why don't you come back in a month, and we'll try out for the indoor team. And so I did, and that worked out. And for a while, I was just happy to be there. I'm just here to get my butt kicked every day.
You worked hard and you accomplished it. So right there, you were already I'm here. I'm a D1 runner at Rutgers. I'm cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it was I knew I was just gonna get rocked every day. and be really sore every day for a long time. and that's the way it was for a long time. And then, it just started to click. And, one of the things when I reflect on my own time, I graduated high school and I was still 17. I walked onto to college campus and I was still 17. I'm a September birthday. So,
yeah.
I think about that a lot because I improved a lot in the next 2 years. And again, I think I improved a lot because, I was still very close friends with Matt, and he was at the University of Colorado, and we were talking about the kind of training that they did, which was bananas. But, in terms of mileage and their altitude and all that stuff. And I'm like, and like I started to dabble in that a little bit, and I was doing a lot of running over the summers and stuff. We'd come home and run together, and it started to click. And some of it was like, here I was thinking that I was just kind of like a mediocre runner, like a middle of the road kind of guy. And I think it was just, I was a year younger than everybody else. And finally I got to that point where like my body caught up a little bit. And, out of all of us, I think, I had the fullest career in terms of races. No, that may not be true. But in terms of development, in terms of drops, I was very proud of the improvement that I was able to get.
I was always super impressed with Chris because I was obviously at Rutgers at the same time. And there were a lot of us like myself or Coach Rivera that we had on from South Windsor who we just stopped running. Like it just wasn't working out. Like we did a little, probably dabbled too much in the college scene atmosphere, but I always gave Chris credit because he always stuck with it, and just his drive and his determination. You knew that he was going to be successful at whatever he was going to do after college because he just had this incredible drive, and he stuck with it for the whole time. And to be named captain as a walk-on is freaking amazing. So, I mean, kudos to you, Chris. Like, I was always impressed with that because we actually lived in the same house. He was downstairs, I was upstairs, and there was no way that house was conducive to someone who was still trying to compete at a D1 level on
hey, you know what?
Five of the 7 nights of the week.
A lot of coaching is learning what not to do, and I think you have a lot of first-hand experience with what not to do.
Yeah.
You learn from your own mistakes, and then you help your athletes not make them.
Yep.
So, Chris,
I believe we were in the house together during the 2000 Subway Series. That was pretty epic, I think.
That was bananas. Mets fans, Yankee fan. That was a great time to be up at Rutgers because it's by New York, and half the bar was Mets, half the bar was Yankees. It was insane.
The right team won, so that's all that matters. But anyway, so Chris, how do you bring now? You're coaching. You've been the head coach over there since 2011. Started coaching from an assistant volunteer at 2004. So you've been doing this for better almost 20 years, almost 2 decades coaching overall. How do you translate your hard work, what you went through, and kind of, it couldn't have been easy mentally, right? You sound like you're a mentally tough person. And I think it takes a lot to be mentally tough to be able to do what you did, basically stick with the running, even though, you had an amazing athlete on your team, but you were never a part of those huge moments. You were on the outside looking in. And then going into collegiate, dealing with some heartbreak, being injured, not being able to get on the first time. But how do you bring your mental toughness, your fortitude, and then your story of accomplishment? Because obviously you became an accomplished runner at Rutgers. How do you translate that to your athletes? You connect more with some of the kids who you can obviously see struggling in the pack and kind of pull them aside and be like, hey, I understand where you were, type of deal.
Yeah, 100%. I think, it's gotten harder as the team has gotten bigger. We had 80 guys out for cross.
Incredible.
We have 140 out for indoor right now. That's just boys. So I'm a little scared about what kind of numbers we're going to see in the spring. Do
you have 17 assistant coaches?
Actually, in the winter, it's tough. In the winter, between the guys and the girls, we got 4 coaches for
wow.
It's really difficult.
Hey, seniors, help a coach out.
yeah. And actually, that is actually an essential part of how our program functions. Is we put a lot of responsibility on our seniors, and so we have a pretty strict code on our team to live by, and as long as kids live by that code, it doesn't matter what their performance level is, they're welcome to stay. And in the indoor season, it's even harder because we can't guarantee that everyone will compete. There just aren't facilities and meets available for everybody to get into the action. So we can't promise that, but we can promise that we're going to give you training, we're going to give you a team, and you're going to develop if you buy in, and kids buy in. But getting back to your question about, like, I will never cut a kid based on performance, because I'm a late bloomer myself. I was young for my grade, and I could have very easily been cut as a high school athlete in virtually any other sport, given how much smaller I was than everybody else. And it took me a while for my body to catch up and for my abilities to show through. And the hard thing about it too is I think back on it, and it's, how much of my own like athletic identity did I create around the fact that I just wasn't as big or strong or fast as a lot of other kids. And it was true, but it wasn't really true. It was only temporarily true, just because, like, I think it was a combination of the fact that I was younger than everybody else, and I was also like a later kid to develop physically. Right. So to say, I really hate using the word talent with kids. I think that becomes very self-fulfilling one way or the other, whatever you believe about yourself. So with a lot of these young kids, like we have a sophomore group right now, they're like young. When they were freshmen, they were young. The seniors always talk, man, these freshmen are small, but these kids were small. and that doesn't mean that there's not talent there.
Small even for XC kids, because XC runners are typically small people.
Right.
So small for XC kids is pushing the limit down there.
Right. But something, like, as they move through their sophomore year and like their bodies start to catch up, the talent it's there. It's really fun to watch it come out, and to watch kids who buy into the process get rewarded for their long-term investment and be willing to struggle for a little while in the middle of the pack or in the back of the pack. And then all of a sudden the physical development kicks in. I mean, testosterone is banned for a reason. It works, and so,
and when you can naturally bring it out, that's better.
Yeah. Some kids are physically developed when they're freshmen, and that gets mistaken for talent. And some kids have to wait on it longer. And what kind of identity are they building? What story are they telling about themselves? So for me, it's all about, like, dude, you might just have to wait a little bit longer than your friends. You have no idea what you're capable of yet. Right. Just keep working, dude. It's there.
I love it.
So Chris, you mentioned him earlier, your old high school coach, Jack Martin, one of the legends in New Jersey, XC and track history. What was it like going back and coaching with him? And then what was it like when he kind of said, all right, it's time for maybe me to pass the reins on to one of my old athletes? I mean, there has to be, when you coach somewhere that long, I know with my old coach, he wasn't just going to let anyone else coach his team. Like, there had to be some sort of trust and belief that he had in you to keep that great tradition of Westfield going. So what was that whole experience like?
It was interesting because he was you go back and you teach at your old high school, and like everything's awkward, right? Because like all of a sudden you're colleagues with all these people, and they're not Mr. or Mrs. or whatever, and so like that there's a little adjustment there. But like
you step into the teacher's lounge for the first time, and you're like, am I doing something wrong? That coffee's for me too?
Yeah. Oh no, rookie, it's not.
No, get them your coffee still. Like, now you can go in there and get it for me.
Yeah, but Jack was great about it. I mean, I think it was an interesting transition for him too, because he worked alone for, I think, his entire time coaching in cross country. It was just him, and so a lot of it was at the beginning, like I was like just coming out of school and I was still in decent shape, and I was off and on like actively training, and so like I would go for runs with the kids and just try to like talk to them about running and help them work a little bit harder. And there really wasn't like a structure to the summers. There wasn't like a lot of structure in between like indoor and outdoor and stuff like that. So like I kind of I wanted to fill that role. Like Like I want to show you guys what you're capable of if you put in a legitimate summer of running. And at that time, the Westfield cross country team wasn't very good. I think we were like 19th in Group 4, 20th in Group 4. A couple times didn't make it out of section, and a lot of it was based on kids not running over the summer consistently, and we did. But it was very much like, and something I took from Jack was Jack put a lot of responsibility on the kids. You choose your level of investment, and you choose your path, and you choose your level of success. And so we knew what we wanted, and again, that goes back to having a guy like Matt on the team to inspire you to like, hey, if I do this, we can really be pretty special. And then, so like, I kind of took that on as my thing. Like, guys, like Cranford was like a top 5, top 10 team in the state in that time frame, like 2002 to 2006, 7. And they were asking me stuff like, do the Cranford kids recruit? I'm like, dude, come on. Like, you know what they do? They outwork you a lot.
They train hard.
Yeah, exactly. And like, that could be you, right? Like, there's nothing different between them and you. You just need to be willing to put in the time and energy. And if you do, you'll see the results. And that started to happen. And at the same time, we had a kid, Jeff Perella, come out, and Jeff ultimately was a Foot Locker finalist for us. And that really got the ball rolling for us. Because again, that was one of those things. Jeff's on the team. All of a sudden, kids started buying in, right? Like, oh man, we're going to have a DMR. Everybody wanted to be the 3-quarter guy, And so then all of a sudden, I've seen this happen at so many schools. You get this one stud on the team, and all of a sudden, like 5 or 6 other kids come out of the woodwork, right? And then sometimes that kid graduates and the level of the team drops back down. And that was kind of the challenge that I laid out for myself as a coach, was like, how do we keep this up? How do we keep these kids bought in all the time? Because you're not always going to have that blue chipper, but that really got the ball rolling for us. Then there was one year where Jack, just one day, like 2 days before the outdoor season started, this was like 2010, and he must have been doing the math that like he was going to retire soon. He was like, this spring, you're the sprint coach. Have fun. And he just kind of turned my back, and he just gave me the keys to that event area. Because I think he knew, he's like, look, this guy's going to be a head coach pretty soon. Yeah. He needs to know what he's doing with more than just distance kids. And I actually really appreciate that he just kind of, I bounced questions off him, but he just gave me free rein. I made a lot of mistakes that season. But
we all do it first, yeah.
Yeah, and but then when you get to the end of that season, and we're sitting after the last meet, and he goes, Tafelski, I got one more year and I'm done. That was like the end of the spring in 2011. He's like, I got one. We got fall 2011, winter and spring, and then I'm done. And he had been retired from the classroom for like 5 or 6 years at that point. So he was actually on the top of his game because he was just coaching full time.
I mean, that had to be pretty cool, like to like have like a guy you obviously looked up to. You've been coaching with him since 2004, so you've been coaching with him now for 7 years. And for him to sit there and pretty damn confidently, it seems, go, it's your team now. That had to be kind of like a little bit of a boost to you going into that, like, this coach believes in me, so I'm obviously he wouldn't hand over the reins to someone he thinks is gonna destroy everything that he built. So, what was the pressure like? Did you feel any extra pressure at that point to be like, I want to take this program to new heights now? Like, I appreciate what coach has done for me and everything, but I want to crush everything that he ever, like, in the nicest way possible. I want to destroy everything he ever accomplished and, put Westfield stamp on New Jersey officially.
Yeah, I mean, still trying, because those last couple of years in cross, 2009, 10, 11, we won Group 4 all 3 years. 2011, we got the wild card out to NXN. Haven't replicated any of those things yet. So we're still working on it. And was there pressure? Yeah, there was pressure. But it all came from me. None of it came from him. It was self-applied entirely. And that was tough, because it's, when there was like a gradual fade where, like, in my first couple of years when I was working with the team, it was like, all right, Martin, what do we have going on at practice today? And he'd tell me what the plan was. I'm like, okay, what do you need me to do to, like, make practice work? Am I going for a run with the distance kids? You want me to work with the sprinters today? Like, what do you need me to do? And then, like, over those years, as we got closer to like 2009, 10, 11, the programming was a lot more collaborative. And we were working together and talking things out for what we were going to do. And the training did evolve a lot over those years because the kids were committed more to the summer running. And as a result, they were able to handle more mileage because they were more consistent all year round. And the summer really is the foundation for a training year for distance.
Absolutely.
It is like if you don't do the summer, by the time the first day of school starts, man, just start thinking about winter because
you don't have your sea legs, so to speak. You're quite literally getting your sea legs, and the people don't realize, high school runners, kids coming in, a base is ridiculously important. I know it's always thrown around, get a base. Man, it's, like Coach says, if you don't have a solid base going into day one of the school year, come back for indoor. Yeah, because you're going to struggle. You're going to hurt. You're going to be in pain when everybody else that does have a base is now able to sit there and run a high level workout week one. And you're like, like, it's not fun. It's not fun coming in with no base.
I mean, I'm not a big mileage guy. I don't count miles. I rag on Strava at practice and the kids joke about it. They got me a little trophy at our banquet that said "#1 Strava fan." And because that's a whole tangent that I don't know. Maybe we can go down, but I'm not a big mileage guy. But I think that, like, one of the basic truths about training over years, over career, is the more you do, the more you can do, the more you can safely handle without running the risk of getting injured. So if you're willing to invest that time, it's going to pay back. And it's not like a linear thing; it's an exponential thing. Right? So if you invest the time, especially early on, kids who run in the summer between their freshman and sophomore year, if they invest a summer there, I'm not worried about them for the other 2 summers of their career. Because if they do that, they're going to have an awesome sophomore year, and it's going to take care of itself. And then the other piece of that is that if you get injured and you have that background because you've been so consistent for so long, that's like your insurance policy. Like, okay, I missed 3 weeks, or I got a stress fracture and I missed 2.5 months or whatever. You're okay. The kid with no foundation is not okay.
Doesn't that sound like my career, Hyatt? Doesn't that sound like I was always injured in high school. Always. Still, I was always a lead runner and always injured, but I was good with the base running. So I always came back, and I'd come back and pick up right where I left off, which sucked because I was trying to PR. So but yeah, you're completely right with all that. So I have to ask you one thing, because you mentioned your mantra. So of course, being the astute and great host I am, no, I'm kidding. But I went and looked it up because I think it's freaking awesome. Because I noticed this when I was looking at some of your Westfield social media stuff. Be a good citizen, be here every day, give your best effort, contribute. What went into making that? Because that's freaking awesome. And I love that you lead with be a good citizen. And, it's nothing to do with, like, be a great athlete, be successful. It's all things that anybody can accomplish. And you just have to, talk to me about what went into that, because that's freaking awesome.
That's our code. That's basically, those are the 4 team rules. We've got them posted on everything. It's on our socials. It's the footer on every document that gets into a kid's hand. We have a parent meeting. It's a footer on that. And we have a big breakdown at our parent meeting. We have a handout. What does be a good citizen mean, right? And actually, when Jack was the head coach, that was the only rule. Be a good citizen. That was it. And so that one is not mine. That is not an original. I'm going to cite my sources. That's a Jack Martin line. I expanded it from there because I wanted to make it something where, like, I think all coaches struggle with the other stuff, right? These kids these days, there's so much pressure on them. College is just the admissions process for the non-athlete, just college admissions process. It's tremendous pressure. And there's so much BS that comes out of that pressure. Like, I got to do a million activities, right? And I joke with the kids, like, some admissions board is going to look at your application and be like, nah, this kid's not in. Oh, wait, hold on. Spanish club. All right, he's in. Right? Like, but does that actually happen? Like, so, like, guys, you got to be here every day. You can't be doing a million things. Now, I'm not saying you can't be in clubs. If you got to come to practice half an hour late once a week or a couple times a month, like, whatever, that's fine. You can't be missing 3 days a week because you're playing club soccer. You like, and we've lost out on some good athletes because of that. Where kids are like, yeah, I mean, we had some kid, he moved to Westfield from Florida, and apparently he has like a 48 as a junior, and he played club soccer. He was very good, played Division I, ran track at his old school, and like they were okay with him coming to practice like once a week and going to the meets. Sorry, dude. No, we don't roll that way. So like, you got to be here every day. Otherwise, like, you don't have a team. You don't have any. And I see that with my oldest son is 11, and we've already struggled with that where like he's forfeited games because not enough of his teammates showed up.
Crazy.
And he's like, dude, it's raining, but who cares? I want to play. And like, yeah, you can't play it. So like, got, if you're going to have a functioning team, that has to be an aspect of your coach, right? So, so be there every day is like an essential piece, right? And then it goes to, you know, give your full effort to whatever it is that we're doing. So if it's a recovery day, kill your recovery, right? Like everything. It doesn't mean grind every day. It means whatever the mission of the day is, crush that, right? And then the last part is this is a team sport. You're in it for more than just you. You're here to contribute to the betterment of your teammates and people around you. And we, as coaches, we actively look for that. We look for kids who are doing things that make their teammates better. And we actively call it out when we see it. You know, oh, what happened over there? Yeah, I heard that. What'd you say? Awesome. Give the kid a fist bump, whatever, play on, right? Like any opportunity you can celebrate kids making other kids better. And then kids learn what it means. Like a freshman has no idea. They don't know what they're doing. How are they going to make somebody else better? But when you call it out and you point it out to them, this is how you make your teammate better. Okay. Now
whatever happened to college applications looking at, he was a 3-sport varsity athlete. He was a team captain here. Maybe he did a club or two, but you know, there used to be a lot of weight, right? I'm being a varsity athlete, eventually becoming a team captain. Like that used to be pretty weighted in colleges. Have you found that that's not as weighted anymore in the college decision? Because that used to be like, that was kind of the thing. Like you did your sport, you eventually rose, you were a contributor captain. Maybe you did a club here and there if you did Habitat or you did something like you wanted to do that. But outside of that, if you were dedicated to an athlete, you showed you had leadership capacity. Colleges love that. Is that something you find that they're not weighting as much anymore?
I can't really say that because you never really know why kids do or don't get accepted into a college. But I think a lot of it is rooted in insecurity. I think a lot of it is rooted in this irrational fear that I'm not going to get in anywhere. And it's like, guys, stop. Like, you're fine. Like, really, like that like saying that goes around on social media now, like, you are enough. Like, guys, you really are. Like, you're fine. But like the process is so, and I think, you know, Westfield is my only experience, and it's like an affluent town. And so some of it may be just like this high octane competition between the kids, but like, guys, calm down. Like you're going to be fine. Like, but they don't believe that, you know, and I have a hard time understanding where that comes from. But I do know that like making people feel insecure is a very profitable thing, and you can turn around and sell them the remedy, you know? And so I think a lot of it is, you know, a lot of high school kids, they're constantly getting the message from one another, from parents, from other media and stuff that like your SAT score is not high enough. Your grades aren't high enough. You're not this enough. You're not that enough. And like, guys, it's fine. Like,
we can get into a whole like philosophical talk about what's going on with kids right now, but that wouldn't be conducive to a track podcast. Maybe for a podcast we can chat about that. So you've been doing this for a while. You took over from, you know, a legend, and again, you went from being athlete to coach basically right away. What have you found have been the challenges and adaptations that you have had to do since, coming in as a coach, basically being one of the athlete coaches. 'Cause I think we all went back when we first coached. We all ran with the team, and it was cool. The college kid fresh out of college is running with us. The lead kids wanted to compete with you, blah, blah, blah. And then the transition occurs. And it occurs basically because you can't do high school workouts anymore, but it occurs. And you then become, a coach. And now you have to start really creating that, I'm a grown man. You're still a kid boundary. I'm not a kid anymore with you. But then the adaptations start to happen with coaching style and things you see around. So what have been your biggest challenges and adaptations throughout the years as a coach? And currently, I know you might want to go on a tangent and a rant about this one, but currently, what's your biggest challenge too?
I think, one of the things, and you're right, as you get older and as the role changes, you're the older brother when you're 22 and you're on runs with the kids, but that's hard too, because you do have to make sure that you're maintaining that boundary, because the lines get crossed and that's bad. So, but
with 18-year-old seniors, when you are kind of friends with them, but you can't be friends with them. So,
but then one thing that always happened when I was going on runs with the kids was I was seeing the same 10 kids, but then what about the rest of the team? So I got some feedback, kind of word of mouth coming back around, oh yeah, Tafelski he only runs with the good kids on the team. So then that counted, they were internalizing that, I didn't care about the rest of the kids. Yeah. So right off the bat, I started to kind of phase myself out of the runs. And then, fitness kind of phases me out of the runs too, right? As you get older. But, some of the biggest mistakes that I made when I became the head coach, and I was, 32 at that point, I was trying to, discipline kids or give, if kids had bad races, Jack was an older school kind of dude. He could get in your face. He certainly got in my face when I was a kid.
We've talked about this with other guests too. There's the whole
with the John Musoffs and turnovers at Manchester. Yeah.
And the thing about it is okay, that's effective, but it's not the only way to be effective. And I think that message lands different. And when the source is a 65-year-old dude than it is when it's a 30-year-old guy. And my relationship with those kids when I transitioned was different because I was the assistant and I could kind of be the good cop a lot of the time. Right. And now I was the head coach. And so that same message delivered in that way, in that old way, coming from me, hit them different. And it was really ineffective. And it didn't take long for me to realize that I needed to change my approach. I needed to not be Jack. I needed to be me. I needed to stop asking myself the question, what would Jack do? It took me a couple of years to kind of figure that out. Some of it is, I think every generation of adults, as they get older, they complain about the younger generation that comes in.
Yep.
Every generation is different than the one that came before. But I think these kids, in a lot of respects, have it a lot harder. I think social media makes the sport a lot harder. I think having media saturation, it makes the sport a lot harder. I mean, back in our day, Lambert would write in the Star Ledger, and that was our paper that we get.
You had to work hard to find track anything.
Yeah, it would be previews on Friday and results on Sunday. Yep. And that was the extent of the coverage. That was the only newspaper that we ever saw in Westfield was the Star Ledger. And so in a cross country meet, they're going to put the top 10 in a race, right? They're not doing the whole thing.
Nope.
And they certainly weren't ranking kids to the extent that they're ranking them now. Some of the silly things, they'll merge all the courses together and rank them as though you can equate two different times on two different courses.
I'm sorry, this might be mean. Stat geeks are ruining all sports, including track and cross country.
I think, in track, in cross country, you're just generating content for its own sake.
And even in track, conditions make a huge difference in outdoor. If it's windy, if it's rainy, if it's, the track might be the same, but man, unless it's all sunny and 75 at every single meet, hard to judge all of them.
Yeah. And so I think, one important thing that kids need to be reminded of, especially the good kids who are really committed, is this isn't your life. It's a part of your life. And it's okay for it to be a big part of your life, but it's still only a part of your life. And now, every time they pick up their phone, they can consume track media. right? And so it's on their socials or whatever. The notifications come to them. So even if they don't want it, it's coming to them. Yeah. So it's intruding upon their personal time a lot. And so I tell the kids and I tell their parents, like, when you're done with practice, you're done being a runner. I mean, you need to make lifestyle decisions, diet, sleep, of course, right? But I want you to like leave practice and go live the rest of your life. Be a student, be a son, a brother, like whatever it is, whatever other roles you play in your life, like you need to do that too. If you're on all the time, I think it leads to kids being tired, because they're just consuming this information all the time. And for the record, I would say the people who generate this, like the guys who work for Mouse, they're good guys, and they're running a business, and this is how these sites stay alive, and they have to generate content. And so, but I don't think they're engaging more people. I don't think they're expanding the sport to a bigger audience. I think they're engaging the same audience more often. And I think that ultimately drags on kids after a while.
I tend to agree with you, except for talking in ovals. Kids and just talking in ovals once a week, usually out on Thursdays. But yeah, so but I tend to agree with you. And Dave, I'm going to talk to you a little bit here because I find it interesting. Every single high school head coach, I think I said the same exact thing that he has with Coach Rivera, Coach Geiger, Coach Baker 2 weeks ago. The approach has changed. We've all had those yell at you coaches, right? Every single one of us. It kind of changed down in mine. Coach Scheffler was amazing, but I did have John Musoff. But Coach Sheff wasn't afraid to get in our face a little bit and tell us when we've been, slacking off. He called us out, which I think accountability is still important. But from every single head coach we've heard of talking with this group of kids, it's a different way of handing out that accountability, right? It's changed in a sense from what we were used to with a lot more of the tough love to, more of a little bit more of an outward expression of I actually care. And I feel like they need to see that you really care. What was kind of a given, I guess, when we were growing up, that he's grumpy, but yeah, I think he actually cares about me. And they showed it every once in a while, right? They wouldn't show it all the time. But, if you had a really down race and you were looking at him and coach looked at you and you're like, he's going to chew me out. And he just came and threw his hand on your shoulder and was like, get him next time. That's it. You got one of those and you're like, he didn't chew me out. I guess he actually cares about me today. So
that didn't happen much when.
But it happened. But there was a strategy there. I think they did it enough, rarely enough, but enough so that you knew they were tough for a reason. But Hyatt, I found it interesting that every single head coach we've had at the high school level lately, on the show, have all said the same thing.
Yeah, no, I also think that, I haven't coached in about 4 or 5 years now, but Chris, maybe we've talked to some other people about this. Have you noticed a change even years?
I'm sorry, I missed the question. I think you mic dropped.
Have you noticed a change even in like the last 3 or 4 years based upon everything that's been going on, that's not in our control with COVID and everything and missing time and having maybe kids, maybe their mental strength maybe isn't what it once was because of everything that's going on?
I think there are some things I actually see more of that in the classroom than I see on the team. I think our team navigated COVID, I think, as well as anybody could have. But I think one of the things that's really something that we've been able to maintain throughout that is that the kids, I think our code really worked on that. If I could go back to that, because I think that the kids bought in over that COVID. Actually, over that COVID break, that one spring that got canceled, I remember listening to Will talk about like how loaded his team was, and it absolutely was. Man, I felt so bad for those kids, man. But coming out of that spring, when we got out of this, when finally like the shoe dropped and the season was canceled, these kids went crazy with their running. Like they were doing more running than I ever would have asked them to do. So much so that they were getting banged up. And I was like, guys, you got to stop. I called the Google meeting. Like, guys, what are you doing? And they're just like, we just need something to do, man. Guys, I would never ask you to do this much. And look, you guys are breaking down. I'm like, stop, time out.
Now, does this have something to do with that social media aspect you were talking about? Because now they're sitting there, they're going on Flow Track, they're watching all these collegiate workouts, they're going on all these things, and probably they're on these boards and they're all talking about, I did this, what are you doing? Let's do this virtual race. Do you think that kind of had something to do with it, where your dedicated guys that were very into running kind of were like, this is what everybody else is doing, I got to keep up? And, do you think that had something to do with it?
I don't know. I mean, I could go back and ask some of those guys. I wouldn't be surprised if the answer to a certain extent was yes. Because we talk a lot with the kids about stuff like Strava, because these kids, they know each other. They're much friendlier at meets than we were, here I am echoing other guys that you've had on. Right. But I think also, guys, you race them on race day. You're not racing their workouts. They ran this workout. Dude, who cares? It's not a competition.
Especially distance runners.
Who can run the highest mileage?
They're neurotic. Distance runners are neurotic people.
And when we go to running camp, and I talk to the kids before we go to running camp, Northeast Kingdom running camp. They're exceptional. They do a terrific job. They have a wonderful staff. But I listen to the college kids, and they're all talking about the weekly mileage and this and that. Like, guys, last I checked, it was a competition to see who could beat one another in a race. Yep. I don't care. I don't care what your mileage is. I mean, I track what the kids are doing. That's my job. I'm your coach. I'm tracking what your volume is. I'm prescribing what I think is an appropriate level of volume for your performance level, your experience with the sport, your injury history. That's my role as your coach. Now, as you get older, that becomes more of a conversation, right? When you're a freshman, I'm telling you what to do, right? And then as you move on and you gain experience and you maybe get injured or you respond well to certain stuff, then we can kind of collaborate on that a little bit. But you should not be training to prove yourself. That's what competition is for. You're training to make yourself better. Do you. Stop worrying about what all these other people are doing. And sure as hell, stop trying to replicate what college kids are doing, because that's a huge mistake.
Have you seen that, kids have gotten away from that self-battle with running? Because I remember when I first entered in as a freshman, one of the beauties of running that I found was, yes, you're competing with those on the track, but you're always competing internally. Your goal is to beat yourself. If you beat yourself in a race, most of us, especially at a lower level and younger, you're not winning races. You're competing in them, but you're not winning them. It takes a little bit to get to the point where now you're someone who can win a race, who can win a meet. Do you think that's kind of gotten away from that with the Strava and, with the Garmin and all that, and kind of the social media aspect of running now? Do you think it's kind of gotten away from beating yourself consistently on meet day? And now, like you said, it's, Joe Phil from this high school just did this on Strava, and, I got to go and do this as well and put it up there. Do you found that they're not beating themselves as much as they used to, as we used to, kind of, where we're always looking to get our own PR on meet day?
Yeah, I think that it's both. I mean, there is like an iron sharpens iron component to this, right? It's not all bad. It's just important that the kids recognize what their thought process is when they're consuming this stuff. So if they're looking at it and they're like, okay, that's nice, and they scroll on, fine. But if they're like, oh man, that kid did that workout, I don't know if I can do that. Who cares if you can do it or not? It's not a race. So, but ultimately, and this is the challenge that I laid out for my kids today at practice, if you go to a meet, and this is especially true in cross country, gets a little dicier in track, but if you go to a meet, you actually don't need to time the race, because it's all about places, right? So what if the timing system were to fail, right? What if nobody brought a stopwatch and they just put tongue depressors in the long jump pit? This is where Johnny jumped, right? This person jumped farther. Okay, so what if there was no measurement? How would you know whether you performed well or not, right? And the reason why I threw this at them today was we just competed at Ocean Breeze on Friday. We're going to the Jersey City Armory on Wednesday. So
way different.
So good luck, 200-meter runners. Like, ran, okay. So you can still become a better runner for the experience of being in there.
Yeah.
One of the things that's totally true, especially for sprinters in indoor track, is like the fittest, fastest kids don't always win. If you're running like an indoor 4x4, right? Like how you run that race on an indoor flat track, like, oh man, your tactics are so important. Right?
Still the funnest race in freaking track, though. It doesn't, and the times don't matter. And I think like you're hitting on a good point.
Yeah.
With all that, because like these, you need to tell your distance runners, go watch Without Limits and just listen to the first words said in Out Limits. Bigger, faster, stronger. Not bigger than the next person, not faster than the next person, not stronger. Just bigger, faster, stronger. It's the Olympic mantra. So it's like, and that's exactly what you're talking about there, where it's like, take every opportunity to get better, not to win, not to compete, not to break your time all the time, but just be better. Just get better every single time you step onto the track or course. And I've seen that thrown out on Twitter all the time, like take away timing in cross country completely, because it's such a freaking problem with everyone putting up their times and comparing this course and that course. And in Jersey, we like to really tout Homedale, and then there's the Battle of Monmouth, and then there's who's tougher, what's bigger, and it's like, who cares? And it's what you're talking about. Who cares?
I mean, one of the things, I think, in cross country, like the running lane meet became a thing in the gap in the void that was left by COVID. And like the course is notoriously fast, and they deliberately like steamroll press it to make it really fast. And now there's been like this, they're posting cross country time rankings. And, you talk to any coach who's recruiting a Jersey kid who's worth their salt, right? And like,
Homedale.
They only want to know one thing, and they want to know how you ran at Homedale. That's it, right? And so like all these courses, right, where they're attracting kids and they're attracting teams because the courses are fast. Ocean County Park, Six Flags, like all this stuff, like
anything South Jersey is all flat.
But and like it's nice to run fast or whatever, but we have 6 months of track, but like ultimately this is about competing against other human beings. The whole sport is scored based on your place in the race. It doesn't matter your margin of victory. It doesn't matter what your average time. It doesn't matter. Like this is about throwing down against your competition on the day. Right. And so the leap of faith that kids need to take with us is that if they develop the skills to be good competitors, the times are going to come. It's going to happen because you're going to get in the right. Sometimes running a fast time is the good luck of having good conditions that day.
And you could still lose. And you could still lose running because, I like to say, like, I won county and conference in the 800 my junior year. I certainly was not the fastest in either of those races. The tactics ended up that they let a kicker sit, and the times aren't anything to call home about either. So it's like, I wasn't the fastest, but it's what you said. It's competing against other humans. They gave me an opportunity and I took it. Now, I run each of those races another 9 times. I'm a champion in either of those. Like the tactics are going to break differently. But like you said, it's any given race. Anyone can falter. Anyone can have the meat of their life. And, you see championship races are the perfect example, especially when you get to the collegiate level. How many PRs are set at a conference race? Very few, because most of the time the best kids are sitting. They know they're stronger than everyone. Then they're going to win the race in a kick, right? So it's like, it's hard to get through the high school kids. I can't imagine especially 80 of them on the cross country.
I mean, but you can go back. I mean, something that I show the kids all the time. I mean, Matt Centrowitz has a gold medal from the Olympics, winning in 3:45, and like Asbel Kiprop, the 3:27 guy, is like going out the back with 1:20 to go, right? And like, because like if you rerun that race a million other times, you're probably going to get a different winner every time. But that's the way it went. He maximized his chance for success, and he's got a gold medal.
He's a gold medal, right?
You're going to take something away from it because it was only 345? Is it somehow a softer gold medal?
Only
Like,
3
of
Hell
course
no.
not,
It's just
right?
stupid
And so,
to say.
this is ultimately, and that is, it is the challenge in like the mile split era, is that times, but really, truly, if they develop the skills to race in a variety, I try to give them different race setups, right? You're going to anchor this relay, then you're going to lead off this one. You're going to, I want you leading a race sometimes. I want you in the middle of the pack. I want you to have just this huge file cabinet of race scenarios that you've been through, right? So you can pull from experience. So by the time you get to be like a junior or senior and you've been through enough races, right? Like, okay, like whatever the world throws at you that day, you've been there before in some form, right? And so like, all the training and the physical preparation in the world, right? You can become the fittest person on the line, but that ultimately, when you get to like a championship level, there's a lot of people who can win. The differences in fitness among those people are very, very small. So who does win? It's about your decision making on the day. It's about you managing your emotions on those days when they run high, because it's high stakes event. That's the difference between training and coaching, in my mind, right? You're training kids at practice. You're coaching them to like prepare them for the day.
I love that.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So we could probably go, because I think we can go for like another 7 hours if we wanted to, but we shouldn't. Again, I said it last week. We're not Joe Rogan yet. When we get to the Joe Rogan experience level, we'll do 3-4 hour pods. But until we get there, I have to end off with this. We're asking, we missed one of our coaches. We missed Coach Baker, but we're asking our New Jersey coaches, what do you think about what New Jersey has been presenting, trying to do, changing with Meet of Champions at XC and in track and field? Essentially, it seems like they're really itching to just take them away. They took away tournament of champions in basketball. They're kind of doing away with all those things. What's your opinion about what they've been doing with Meet of Champions and tinkering with it? And if they eventually take it away, how do you feel about it?
Well, I think at this point, they've gone on record as saying the way it was run in fall 2022 is the way it's going to stay, which came as a relief to a lot of us because the original plan was far worse. They put something in there about safety concerns with the number of kids in the race. I don't know, man. You look at like a JV race at the short coaches when you got like 300 kids in there, and you're looking like the old MOC with like 195 was a cakewalk, right? In terms of number of bodies in the race. So, if there was a true safety concern, then why don't they go around and shut that down? But so, I think safety is one of those things where you can
don't give them ideas, Chris. Don't give them ideas.
Well, no, it was their idea. They said it, but then you come back and say like, look, okay, well, now if you oppose it, you have a problem with safety, right? Like, so now, like, it's a way to like frame the argument where if you
that's when you say yes, because there is no such thing as safe back in the trails when we can't watch them.
I think we owe some people a tremendous amount of gratitude for salvaging what was salvaged. I wish they would have left it alone. I don't really know anybody who feels differently about that.
Us either.
But I think that this is a sport. Like, I wish that I feel like one of their missions is to treat all the sports equally. And if we can't do a TOC in every sport, then we're not going to do it in any sport. I wish they would approach their role as a governing body differently. I wish that they would approach it as, these are our constraints, right? Like these are our financial, this is our budget, these are facility restraints, these are our manpower restraints in terms of meet management officials, whatever. How can we maximize the experience for the greatest number of kids within those constraints? And so like in some sports, you may not be able to provide it. I don't think that automatically means that you don't provide it for anyone, because you can't provide it for everyone. I coach 80 guys in cross country. I can't give everybody everything. I try to maximize the experience of every kid, but I've got 140 guys in my indoor track team, not every kid gets into the weight room. It's small. It's good for what we need, but it's just not designed for the number of kids that we have. We give kids strength training in other ways, but they're not all going to get into the weight room. I have to prioritize some kids. That's unfortunately the way it is. But just because I can't get everyone into the weight room doesn't mean no one goes in, right? So I wish they would start from the opposite side and say, like, okay, how do we maximize the experience for every kid in every sport? And go from there. So in that way, was it better with more teams? Yeah. As a Group 4 coach, does it change much for me? No, I don't really think it does.
Right. It's definitely more the smaller schools.
It does.
I felt were definitely affected more.
Yeah.
And there used to be a big differentiation between contact and non-contact sports, right? And I feel like that should be a good way of kind of looking at this, because XC, us three here knowing XC is completely and totally a contact sport, right? But it is considered a quote unquote non-contact sport. So it should be treated differently. I don't understand taking away any of the tournament of champions. I think it's all stupid. I think it was a pretty good achievement to have anyone be named the tournament of champion. You're obviously the best of the best in the state of New Jersey. I think the whole safety concerns is gobbledygook, but that's neither here nor there with that. But I think they should be treating all these things different. It's a different type of strain on your body, XC, swimming, track and field, as it is for football, basketball, soccer. There's certainly different aspects that go into it. So I feel like that would be another good approach for them to start. But yeah, uniformly, we're all against anything. Don't change the mock. Like, don't change Meet of Champions. It's a legendary meet. You go anywhere, you go on a different team, and Jersey kids are on whatever team around the country. It's always cool because not every state has what the Meet of Champs is. They don't always have that. There is one state champion. That is it. There's like, I won this group, I won that, or I won my section. Like, no. We have a legitimate state champion. It's rare. You don't see it all the time. So, and
it's the envy of a lot of other states. And I think awesome. I think that's the perspective that we who have been a part of the sport for a long time, we have that.
It's a pride.
And I don't think it's reasonable to expect that they who make these decision makers, that make these decisions, have the same longevity in the sport that we do. I wish that they would listen to the people who do more than they do. One of the things that they mentioned was that a lot of the TOCs were really, really lopsided competitions, right? Like non-public B would play against a Group 3 championship in basketball and get routed. And here you are, a state championship, and your last game of the season, you're getting your doors blown off. Our girls basketball team won Group 4 last year. And they played in the last girls basketball TOC, and they were eliminated first round, and it was a pretty lopsided game. I had a couple of those girls in class, and I asked them, I'm like, well, if this were a year from now, you wouldn't play that TOC. You would have ended your career in that game, where you won Group 4. Would you still want to play that game knowing what you know now? They said, absolutely. They said, I would want to play in that TOC, even if it means we lose by 25. I would still want to play in that game, because these kids, if they're a championship team, they're gamers, and they want to see what they can do against other good teams. Yeah, so I don't buy the argument that it's too lopsided, so why play?
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think that flies in the face of everything that coaches teach kids about competition. Exactly.
Yeah. Cinderella stories exist, man. That's why we love the NCAA tournament.
I tell my kids that all the time. Performances on miles but are garbage. We love the NCAA tournament, right? Because we know that something that's not supposed to happen is gonna happen.
Yeah, 100%. So I love it. We're really building an archive here, Dave and I, of coaches, former athletes that have competed. Meet a conference champion, Ian Hahn had a good opinion about. So many people have that opinion, and anyone that's coached in Jersey that has gone to Meet a Champs, just man, the special things that go on at that meet too, you can't equate it. Like some of the amazing races, and that is a meet. Unlike some other championship meets, that is a meet where you see PRs, you see state records, you see really special things, kids that are going to go compete major SEC, major out in West. Like, you see stars in the making, and it would be terrible for us to be robbed. I love that we're building this archive. Dave, do you have anything else before we jump out of here?
No, listen, like a couple other guests that we've had on. I've known Chris, 20-something years. We were college roommates. Great guy. It's always great to see, everybody who used to live, on Gilden Street, who's now doing their thing, coaching in all these different high schools. And it was just a joy to have you on. And I'm just proud of you, and just keep on going, buddy.
Thanks, Dave. And keep doing what you're doing, guys. This is great for the sport.
Awesome. I do have to say, the Rutgers pipeline from that freaking team into coaching in New Jersey is absolutely incredible. There is something to be said, not even about the competition over there at Rutgers and how good you guys were as a team, but man, something was in the water there that it just seemed to click for everyone on that team, including, Hyatt himself, to just be good coaches, to understand the sport, to love the sport. And you all guys all got their different ways, but it's just really cool that, that's a pretty badass legacy to have as a team. Like, we are some of the best coaches in the state of New Jersey at the sport that we love. That's freaking awesome. Not many teams can say that. There are many teams that can say that. So you guys have a really cool thing going there. And I appreciate you coming on. I hope that people feel like we have a freaking cool thing going here, because we're doing our thing here. We will be back next week as always. Coach, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Like, share, follow, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, spread us word of mouth. We'll be back next week. Everyone, so long.